MagSafe board. And be careful, this guy really is magnetic, and it will steal screws from you if you don't put them away properly in a screw cup, and it will get stuck to other components. So if you are missing screws when you go to put a MacBook back together, check the end of your MagSafe board, make sure they didn't disappear on you there. And I'm going to go ahead and remove the left speaker. And then I'm also going to remove the inverter from the logic board, the inverter cable from the logic board. The inverter is really interesting. On the MacBook, the inverter powers the backlight on LCDs, on older non-LED lit LCDs. And one of the things that we find we replace often on the MacBooks is the inverter board, which is underneath the clutch cover here. And it's a little more of an involved repair. I'm not going to take the time to show you that right now. But if you are having issues with your backlight flickering, there's a good chance it is that inverter board. However, also anecdotally, sometimes the inverter cable, the guy that I just detached, sometimes it sticks to the top case of the MacBook. So if your MacBook was bumped into something recently and all of a sudden your backlight doesn't work, but everything else on the machine seems to work okay, if you are comfortable removing your top case, you might just want to check and see if the inverter cable was just disconnected, because that does happen on occasion. So now that I've got my airport cable and my inverter cable out of the way, I'm going to go ahead and take a piece of cap tape and tape those down as well. Again, this just helps me when I'm putting everything back together. It keeps things neat, and that way I am very unlikely to end up with cables under the logic board. So now I'm going to fully remove the left I/O brace that I partially removed before. Come on. And there are 3 screws holding this in place. On the newer MacBooks, not the unibody, but the ones that were still newer than this guy was, some of them did have 4 screws that hold that in place. And I'm just removing the bracket that holds, it goes from the left I/O brace to the battery indicator, and it holds it in place there. Cool. So now I'm going to once again remove the sleep switch from the logic board, and then I've got to unscrew my logic board. That is the only component that I always leave screwed in, because if the logic board's unscrewed and everything else is unscrewed and you're pulling cables out of it, there's a very good chance that the board's just going to come with you, and that is no good. Bending a logic board, never a good idea. So there are 3 small screws that hold this logic board in place. And I'm just going to remove, oh, and this guy is missing one. Wah, wah. So this machine, we've noticed, is missing quite a bit of screws. Well, this is one of the ones that's added to the list. So now I pick up my logic board, and it does appear that we have some, oh, actually, no, we don't have liquid. That was just the left I/O shield. So you notice that I picked up the logic board from the right-hand side here. Let me see if I can give you an idea. So I was holding it with my hand right there and lifting at an angle and pulling out very gingerly. Now, of all the things that I say you guys can play with at home, but really I don't advise unless you're a certified technician, logic board removal, you really do either want to be a certified technician or be totally okay with the fact that you might kill your machine. This part right here is about $500, so pretty darn expensive. If you happen to be replacing the logic board, there is a frame here that you would want to transfer from the old board to the replacement. This is an EMI shield, and there we go, I just put it right back on. So now what I'm doing is just looking at the bottom case for liquid damage. I'm not seeing any. There's a little bit of debris around the fan area. That was where I was just poking here. That's kind of to be expected, though. The fan is going to constantly be chugging and moving dust around, so it's really not uncommon for there to be some stuff there. I'm looking at the bottom of the logic board here, and I don't see any liquid damage there. So it looks like this machine had the bulk of the liquid spilled through the keyboard and it ended up in the hard drive area. Alternative would have been it could have been placed on liquid and that could have seeped up through the battery bay. It's a little bit hard to say for sure. So on the reassembly here, I'm just sliding the board in and down. I'm going to put my 2 screws back in this logic board. Remember, there should be 3 screws here, but this poor machine is missing one. And I'm going to go ahead and plug in the sleep switch battery indicator. I'm going to get my left I/O brace in here. So again, now that we've had some changeover in the viewers, I definitely invite you guys to ask me questions. Whew, excuse me. I am looking at the chat window that we have here and on our Twitter account at HelloSmellDog. So please feel free to send me some questions. So I've got the 3 screws in there. Now I'm going to go ahead and put in my left speaker and plug that guy into the logic board. The left speaker does route around the MagSafe connector to the board, so it goes kind of to the left of the MagSafe connector, and there's a little bracket on the left I/O bracket where you'd want to place that to route it properly. Oh, that's my fan. So I've got that guy in. Now I'm going to take my MagSafe board, and first I plug it into the logic board because I find that is the easiest, and then I tilt it backwards, well, to the right and down. And screw that one in. Go with my airport card. So you'll notice in general I put the components back in the same order that I take them out, and I do like to start from left to right when I'm working on this. And I just realized that I was missing my bracket here. Much better. Okay, back to my airport card. So I put the longer grounding screw on the right-hand side. And put the smaller screw on the left-hand side. Remove the cables that I have tied down with the cap tape. Plug in my inverter cable securely. The newer model MacBooks come with a piece of foam that one can put on top of that to hold that down. And I'm going to plug my airport antennas in the same order that I removed them. Sometimes these antennas can be a little difficult. These weren't, but sometimes they are, and what I like to do is instead of pushing with my finger, which is a bit more malleable than the nylon is, I would just take the nylon and make sure that I have the connector centered over the receiving end, and I just snap it in place that way. Another area that you really don't want to use a lot of force on, though, because you can easily bend the connectors that are in here. So, as I said a moment ago, you never want to put back the heatsink onto the logic board without replacing the cap tape. I didn't know that I was going to be showing you guys this today, so I don't have, without replacing the thermal grease. So since I didn't know that I'd be showing you this today, I don't have thermal grease right at my workstation. It's at my buddy's workstation over there. To save myself time, I'm not going to go get it. I'm just going to firmly remind you that you do need to replace that. We're actually not going to fully reassemble this machine today because it is here to be repaired. The customer knows that it's liquid damaged. They definitely want it repaired. So what I am going to do is just fully remove the heat sink, so no one misses the fact that it does need to have thermal grease reapplied. And I'll just go ahead and finish with the rest of my cables on the right-hand side here. So I start with my Bluetooth cable. Then I go for my SATA cable. Then the microphone cable, making sure to route it properly through the clip on the logic board. I like to seat this cable with the end of my black stick because I don't think any human fingers can fit into that area over there. I've got my right speakers, my LVDS connector, again for the display, and the optical drive connector. So the only things that we're missing here now are the heat sink and the fan, and of course this poor liquid damaged hard drive that's been removed. So that is it. That is our